Alright, so today we will be gapping the speed and reference sensors on a Porsche 944. And what does gapping mean? Well, it means that you want to have the speed sensor 0.8 millimeters away from the ring gear on the pressure plate so that the sensors properly read. Now that gap of 0.8 millimeters is where I'm sticking my feeler gauge in right now. And the way this is adjusted is the bracket that these sensors sit in moves up and down, as seen here. Now I'm doing this with the bell housing off because I'm in the middle of a clutch job. Just to show you the whole concept, I will show you later how to do this without having to remove the whole bell housing. But for me, to set them, all I do is I take my feeler gauge, 0.8 millimeters. I put the bracket in place. And then I get my bolts in, the top and the bottom, and I torque them down so that the bracket is in place. Then I remove my sensors, and I got my bell housing back on, and I called it a day. However, this is obviously an unreasonable method for most people, as you're not going to be wanting to remove the entire bell housing or transmission or engine in order to just gap the sensors. So the alternative method of doing this is to use a washer instead. So instead of having the feeler gauge sit in between the ring gear and the sensor, what we're going to do is we're going to find a washer that's 0.8 millimeters. We're going to glue it onto the end, and we're going to have that be our gap in between the ring gear and the sensors. So the way we do that is after you kind of dig through the whole back of your engine, you finally find these. You pull out the sensor, you find a washer that's 0.8 millimeters with either a feeler gauge or some other measurement device, and then you're going to want to get this washer to stick onto the end of the sensor you pulled out, and just as I show here, that's how you're going to want to set it. The way you do this is you grab some super glue, dab it onto the end, then you put your washer right onto the end, and at that point you would insert the sensor back into the bracket. And just as I showed earlier when I had the bell housing off, you want to get it all the way down. You want to get it right up against the ring gear so that the washer's right up against the ring gear, and then you torque it all down. You get the bracket put in place with that gap set, at which point you would take back out the sensor and then you would take off the washer, which would still be on, and place the sensor back in and bolt it back down.